My name is Elena Martinez, and I'm 27 years old. The day everything changed started with a voicemail from my brother Marcus. Family dinner. Saturday. Dad says it's important. That was 6 weeks ago. I shut up thinking we'd discuss vacation plans or maybe Dad's retirement party. Instead, I walked into an ambush. The dining room at my parents' estate in Scottsdale felt different that evening. Too formal. Too quiet. Both my parents were there, Dad in his usual chair, Mom perched beside him like a sentinel. Marcus sat across from them with his wife Jennifer, and there were two people I didn't recognize, a woman in a navy suit holding a leather briefcase, and a man with silver-streamed hair who introduced himself as Roger Chen, the family attorney. "Elena, sit down," Dad said, not looking at me. The chair felt cold even through my jeans. On the table in front of me was a manila folder with my name typed across the tab. Before I could ask what was happening, Roger cleared his throat and began reading from a document in that careful, emotionless voice lawyers use when delivering bad news. My parents were transferring their entire estate to Marcus. The house, the vacation property in Sedona, the investment portfolio worth approximately $3.2 million, everything. My name appeared exactly once in the document, in a clause titled Exclusions. What about me? The words came out smaller than I intended. Mom answered before Dad could speak. Marcus has always been responsible, Elena. He has a family. He has stability. She paused, and I saw something flicker in her eyes, not quite regret, more like determination. You've always been unpredictable. Unpredictable. The word hung in the air like smoke. I'd spent the last 3 years building my graphic design freelance business. I'd chosen creativity over corporate ladders. I'd traveled to Thailand to find inspiration instead of buying a house in their neighborhood. I'd dated an artist instead of a lawyer. To them, these weren't choices, they were character flaws. Roger slid a pen across the table. We'll need your signature acknowledging the distribution plan. I looked at my brother. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes, but Jennifer squeezed his hand under the table. They'd known this was coming. Maybe they'd even suggested it. Here's what nobody tells you about betrayal: it doesn't always feel like anger. Sometimes it feels like falling through ice, that moment where you're too shocked to scream because your lungs have forgotten how to work. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake, which surprised me. I signed my name in 3 places where Roger had marked with sticky tabs. Then I stood up. Elena, Dad started. I heard you, I said quietly. I understand completely. I walked out of that house with nothing but my car keys and the jacket I'd worn in. Nobody followed me. Nobody said wait. The door closed behind me with a soft click that somehow felt louder than slamming. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could turn the key. The Scottsdale evening was beautiful, sunset painting the desert pink and gold. Somehow that made it worse. When I finally drove away, I didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later, on a Tuesday morning 2 weeks later when I was eating breakfast and suddenly realized that my parents had planned this for months. That every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every how's business going question had been theater while they prepared to erase me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. If your family did this to you, would you walk away and rebuild, or would you fight for what you believe you deserve? Drop A for walk away, B for fight in the comments. And if this story is resonating with you, hit that subscribe button. It's free and it helps more than you know. Let me tell you what happened next. Because what I discovered about my brother changed everything. The first client disappeared 3 days after the family meeting. Jessica Hartwell, a small business owner who'd hired me to redesign her bakery's branding. We'd had 2 productive meetings, sketches approved, timeline set. Then, "Hi Elena, we've decided to go another direction." Nothing personal. I told myself these things happen. Freelancing means occasional cancellations. The second cancellation came 5 days later. Then a third. Then a fourth. By week 3, I'd lost 6 clients. 6 projects that represented $18,000 of work, more than half my quarterly income. Each cancellation used similar language, different direction, timing issues, budget concerns. None of it rang true. I survived on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. Not because I romanticized struggle, but because my bank account showed $2,847 and rent was $1,200. I stopped buying coffee. I stopped driving anywhere non-essential. I canceled my gym membership and started running in the park instead. Rock bottom isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's choosing between gas money and groceries. It's sitting on your apartment floor at 2 a.m. doing math on the back of an envelope, trying to figure out how long you can last. One afternoon, I ran into Sarah Chen at the grocery store. She'd hired me 6 months earlier to design her real estate firm's website. We'd stayed friendly, exchanging occasional emails about design trends. "Elena." She seemed genuinely happy to see me. Then her expression shifted. I heard things got difficult with your family situation." My stomach dropped. "What did you hear?" She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Someone told me you were taking time off from client work. That you were going through some personal issues, legal issues, maybe?" I don't know the details, but there were concerns about reliability. "Who told you this?" I'd rather not say. "But Elena." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "A friend of mine was considering hiring you last month. She heard similar things and went with someone else. I think someone's spreading rumors." After Sarah left, I stood in the produce aisle for 10 minutes, staring at tomatoes I couldn't afford, my mind racing. That evening, I did what I should have done weeks earlier. I called every client who'd canceled and asked directly, "Did someone contact you about me?" Most wouldn't answer. 2 hung up. But one, a restaurant owner named David Park, was honest. "Your brother called," he said finally. "Marcus Martinez. He said he was concerned about you. That you were going through a difficult time and he wasn't sure you could handle professional commitments right now. He said it as family looking out for family, you know? Made it seem like he cared." "What exactly did he say?" "That there were some financial issues in the family. Legal complications." He never said anything directly negative, but the implication was clear, that working with you might be risky. After I hung up, I sat very still. Marcus hadn't just stood by while our parents disinherited me. He was actively destroying the life I was trying to build. Quietly. Carefully. With just enough plausible deniability that if anyone questioned him, he could say he was worried about his sister. I wanted to call him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I made a list. Not of what I'd lost, I'd made that list already, and it only led to darker places. This was a different kind of list. A list of what I still had, my skills, my portfolio, my determination, and now, clarity about exactly who my brother really was. I'm going to pause here because I need your perspective. If your own sibling was sabotaging your career behind your back, would you confront them immediately or quietly gather evidence first? For confront now, B for gather evidence. Tell me in the comments. And if you're finding this story hits close to home, that subscribe button is right there. This is just the beginning. What I did next surprised even me. I almost deleted the email. It arrived on a Thursday evening while I was updating my portfolio website, trying to salvage what was left of my business. The subject line read, Design Opportunity, Phoenix Hospitality Project. The sender was someone named Catherine Ross. No company signature, no website link, just a brief message. I came across your work through a colleague. I'm developing a boutique hotel in downtown Phoenix and need someone with your aesthetic sensibility. Would you be available for a consultation? Budget is flexible. It felt too convenient. Too perfect. In my experience, perfect opportunities that arrived when you desperately needed them were usually scams. But I responded anyway. What did I have to lose? We met at a coffee shop in downtown Phoenix. Catherine was in her late 50s, wearing expensive but understated clothing, the kind of woman who'd built something real and didn't need to advertise it. She had shrewd eyes and a handshake that meant business. I'll be direct, she said once we'd ordered. I've been in commercial real estate for 30 years. I've worked with dozens of designers. Most of them are technically competent but creatively bankrupt. Then I saw your portfolio. She pulled out her phone and showed me the project mock-ups I'd done for a boutique wine bar the previous year. This understanding of space and mood, this is what I need. How did you find my work? I asked. A friend showed me. She was considering hiring you but went another direction. Catherine's expression shifted slightly. She mentioned there were some concerns about your availability, family issues, or something. I'm not interested in gossip. I'm interested in talent. Something in her tone made me realize she knew more than she was saying. But she was giving me an out, a way to focus on work instead of drama. The project was ambitious. An abandoned office building in downtown Phoenix that Catherine was converting into a 28-room boutique hotel. She wanted something that felt both modern and warm, industrial but inviting. Everything I'd been training myself to do. Budget? I asked. $85,000 for complete interior design. 6-month timeline. I tried not to react. $85,000 was more than I'd made in the entire previous year. I should be transparent, Catherine continued. I make investment decisions based on potential, not credentials. I don't care who your family is or what they think of your choices. I care about whether you can execute this vision. She paused. Can you? I thought about my empty bank account. My cancelled clients. My brother's calculated betrayal. My parents' cold dismissal. Then I thought about every late night I'd spent teaching myself advanced design software. Every project I'd poured my heart into. Every risk I'd taken choosing creativity over safety. Yes, I said. I can. We shook hands across the table, and something shifted inside me. Not hope exactly, hope felt too fragile. This was something harder, more sustainable. Determination. Catherine gave me 2 weeks to develop initial concepts. I worked 16-hour days, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and the kind of focused energy that comes from knowing this might be your last real shot. When I presented the concepts, Catherine studied them in silence for 5 full minutes. Then she looked up. When can you start? The hotel project consumed the next 5 months. I sourced materials from local artisans, designed custom furniture pieces, created a lighting scheme that transformed ordinary spaces into something memorable. Catherine gave me creative freedom but held me accountable to budget and timeline. It was the healthiest professional relationship I'd ever had. Let me ask you something. When someone believes in you after everyone else has written you off, does it feel like rescue or like recognition? Think about that. And if you're still with me on this journey, hit that like button. It tells me you want to see where this goes. Because what happened when Marcus found out about this project? That's when things got interesting. The hotel opened on a Saturday in October. Catherine hosted a small launch event, investors, local business owners, a few journalists from Phoenix lifestyle magazines. I wore a simple black dress I'd bought on sale and tried not to feel like an imposter. The space looked incredible. Warm wood tones mixed with industrial metal fixtures. Each room told its own story through custom artwork from local creators. The lobby featured a living wall of desert plants that transformed the entrance into something alive. A journalist from Phoenix Modern Living pulled me aside for a brief interview. "You're young to be handling a project this scale. How did you land this?" "Catherine Ross took a chance on me," I said honestly. "And I worked harder than I've ever worked in my life to prove she was right." The article ran 2 weeks later with a photo spread of the hotel and a sidebar about emerging designers to watch. My name was prominently featured. I didn't think much about it until Catherine called me on a Wednesday evening. "I had an interesting conversation today," she said. "A man named Marcus Martinez called my office. Said he was your brother. Wanted to warn me about some concerns regarding your professional reliability." My blood went cold. "He was very careful with his wording," Catherine continued. "Nothing overtly defamatory. Just concerned family member making sure I knew about your situation. He suggested I might want to verify your credentials and financial stability before working with you further." "I'm sorry," I said automatically. "I didn't." "Don't apologize," Catherine cut me off. "I'm telling you this because you should know what's happening." "But Elena, I've been in business long enough to recognize a hit job when I see one. Your brother didn't call out of concern. He called because he saw the article." She let that sink in. "Here's what you need to understand. People like your brother, they can't stand watching someone they've written off actually succeed. It threatens their entire worldview. So they try to burn down what you're building." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I make my own assessments of who I work with." Then I ended the call. She paused. "But Elena, you need to document this. If he's done it once, he'll do it again. And next time, you might not be working with someone who ignores that kind of interference." After we hung up, I sat with my laptop and created a new folder, Evidence. I documented every client who'd canceled, every rumor I'd heard, the conversation with David Park, now this call to Catherine. Then I did something I'd been avoiding. I searched for Marcus online, specifically his professional activities. What I found made my hands shake. Marcus was on the board of the Scottsdale Small Business Development Council. He attended monthly networking events across Phoenix. He was connected to dozens of business owners, real estate developers, and entrepreneurs, many in the exact industries where I was trying to build my client base. He wasn't just sabotaging me with individual phone calls. He was positioned to poison every well I might try to drink from across the entire Phoenix business community. I found a discussion forum where local business owners exchanged recommendations. Someone had posted asking about graphic designers. Marcus had responded, "Be careful with Elena Martinez. Family issues have made her unreliable. Would recommend looking elsewhere." The post was 3 months old. 12 people had liked it. I closed my laptop and walked to my apartment window. The Phoenix skyline glittered under the night sky, full of businesses I'd never be hired by because my own brother had methodically destroyed my reputation before I even knew I needed to defend it. Here's what I need to know from you. If someone in your family was systematically destroying your career, would you cut them off completely or try to confront them first? A for cut off, B for confront. Drop your answer below. And if this story is making you think about your own family dynamics, subscribe. Because what I decided to do about Marcus, nobody saw it coming. What happened next changed everything. I couldn't stay in Phoenix. That realization hit me during a sleepless night 2 weeks after discovering Marcus's online sabotage. Every potential client I approached, every networking event I attended, every opportunity that emerged, he had access to it all. His network was too extensive. His influence too embedded. Fighting him here would be like trying to swim upstream in a river he controlled. Catherine noticed my distraction during our weekly check-in. We were reviewing plans for her second hotel project, but my mind kept wandering. "What's wrong?" she asked finally. I told her everything. The full story of the disinheritance, Marcus's systematic campaign, the online posts, the phone calls to clients. All of it. She listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I have a project in Austin," she said finally. "Different market, different network. Texas is experiencing a commercial real estate boom, particularly in boutique hospitality. I've been looking for someone to manage design operations there." My heart started beating faster. It would be a partnership, not just contract work. You'd have equity in the projects you develop. But it would mean relocating. Starting over in a city where your brother's reputation campaigns can't touch you. When would I need to decide? I leave for Austin in 3 weeks to finalize property acquisitions. If you're coming, you'd come then. I spent 72 hours thinking about nothing else. Starting over meant abandoning the few clients I had left in Phoenix. It meant leaving the city I'd grown up in, the desert landscapes I knew by heart. But staying meant fighting a battle Marcus had rigged from the start. On the 3rd day, I called Catherine. "I'm in." I gave notice on my apartment, sold most of my furniture, packed what mattered into my 7-year-old Subaru. Everything I owned fit in the back seat and trunk with room to spare. The night before I left, I drove past my parents' house in Scottsdale. The lights were on. I could see figures moving behind the curtains, probably Marcus and Jennifer over for dinner, the family gathering without the problematic daughter who'd been surgically removed. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I just looked at that house one last time and felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just the strange emptiness of watching something that used to matter become irrelevant. The drive to Austin took 14 hours. I left Phoenix at 4 a.m., drove through New Mexico's desert highways, and crossed into Texas as the sun set over oil fields and scrubland. Austin appeared like a mirage, green and humid and completely different from the desert I'd left behind. Catherine had arranged a short-term rental for me in East Austin, a 1-bedroom apartment above a coffee roaster. The place smelled like espresso and possibility. I spent the first week exploring the city, attending design meetups, visiting potential project sites with Catherine. Austin was growing fast, full of people who'd moved here for fresh starts and second chances. I fit right in. Then Catherine introduced me to the first major project, a historic building in downtown Austin that we'd be converting into a 35-room hotel with ground-floor restaurant and rooftop bar. "This is the anchor project," she said. "If we execute this well, it opens doors across Texas. Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, we'll have our pick." The budget was $2.3 million. My design fee alone would be $180,000. I'd left Phoenix with $4,000 to my name and no family. 4 months later, I was standing in front of a building that would define my career, working with a woman who believed in investment over inheritance. Quick question for you: have you ever had to leave everything behind to save yourself? Or are you still trying to make it work where you are? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And hit subscribe if you want to see what happens when Elena's success becomes impossible to ignore. Because her family definitely noticed. Let me tell you about the phone call that changed everything. The Austin project took 8 months. 8 months of 16-hour days, of making impossible decisions about materials and budgets, of managing contractors who tested me because I was young and female, of proving myself 100 times over. When it was finished, the hotel was featured in Southern Living, Texas Monthly, and Architectural Digest's Emerging Spaces to Watch series. My name appeared in every article, sometimes with photos of me standing in the completed spaces. I'd changed in those 8 months. I was leaner, harder, more confident. I looked at problems differently now, not as obstacles but as design challenges with creative solutions. The business grew faster than I'd anticipated. Catherine and I formalized our partnership, Ross and Martinez Design Hospitality. She handled acquisitions and financing, I handled creative direction and execution. We completed 3 more projects in Austin, then expanded to Dallas. By the end of year 2, our portfolio was worth $7.8 million. I didn't post about any of this on social media. I didn't send updates to family. I built my life quietly, deliberately, like constructing a building from foundation to roof, one solid decision at a time. Then one evening, while reviewing plans for a hotel in Houston, my phone rang with a number I'd deleted 2 years earlier. Mom. I stared at the screen through 3 rings before answering. Elena. Her voice was different. Softer maybe, or more uncertain. It's been a long time. Yes, it has. I saw the article in Architectural Digest. The Austin Hotel. It's beautiful. I didn't respond. I waited. Your father and we've been talking. We think perhaps we were too hasty in how we handled things. Family shouldn't be too hasty? The words came out sharper than I intended. You disinherited me, Mom. You told me I was unreliable and irresponsible. You watched me sign away any claim to the family and said nothing. We thought we were protecting Marcus. He has a family, responsibilities. And I didn't deserve the same consideration? Silence on her end. Then, we'd like to see you. Maybe talk about adjusting the estate plans. There it was. The real reason for the call. You want to adjust the plans now that I'm successful. Elena, don't be dramatic. We're your parents. We love you. We made a mistake, and we're trying to correct it. I closed my eyes. 2 years ago, this call would have meant everything. I would have cried. I might have forgiven them on the spot just to feel like I belonged somewhere again. Now? Now I heard the calculation in her voice. The same tone she'd used at that dinner table, only reversed. They'd measured my worth in dollars and found me lacking. Now the numbers had changed, and suddenly I was worth reconsidering. What does Marcus think about this? I asked. Marcus agrees we should all be in communication again. I almost laughed. Marcus, who'd spent 2 years trying to destroy my career, now agreed we should communicate. Tell Dad I received his message. But I'm not interested in adjusting estate plans or restoring family connections based on bank account balances. Elena. I have to go, Mom. I have a meeting. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. From something else. Relief, maybe. Or clarity. They wanted me back in the family now that I had something worth taking. The thought was so absurd it actually made me smile. Let me ask you this, if your family only valued you when you had money or success, would you let them back in? Or would you keep the door closed? A for let them in, B for keep it closed. Drop your answer below. And if you're invested in seeing how this plays out, hit that subscribe button. Because what I discovered about Marcus next. It made everything make sense. Here's what I didn't know was coming. I met James Chen through a mutual connection at a design industry conference in Dallas. He was a real estate attorney, sharp and methodical, the kind of lawyer who read contracts the way other people read novels, carefully and for pleasure. We'd kept in loose touch over the following months, occasionally meeting for coffee when our projects overlapped geographically. He was good company, smart without being arrogant, curious about design in a way most lawyers weren't. Then one afternoon, he called with a tone I hadn't heard before. Elena, I need to tell you something. It's about your brother. I was in my Austin office, reviewing tile samples for a project in San Antonio. I set down the samples carefully. I'm listening. I was doing due diligence on a commercial property in Scottsdale. Standard title search, checking liens, permits, the usual. Your brother Marcus's name came up as a limited partner in the development company. Okay. The documents included email correspondence about project vetting. Elena, your name was mentioned. Marcus wrote to the other partners warning them about a designer named Elena Martinez. He said you had questionable business practices and a history of unreliability. He specifically recommended they avoid working with anyone associated with you. My jaw tightened. When was this? 18 months ago. Around the time you would have been starting the Austin project. So even after I'd left Phoenix, even after I'd moved to a completely different city, Marcus had still been trying to sabotage me. There's more, James continued. I found similar language in 2 other development deals he's involved with. It's a pattern. He's been systematically warning business partners and associates away from you. Is that illegal? It's complicated. If the statements are false and cause demonstrable financial harm, it could be defamation or tortious interference with business relations. But proving damage is difficult, especially if you've been successful despite his efforts. What would you need to make a case? James was quiet for a moment. Permission to dig deeper. I'd want to document every instance I can find, collect the communications, build a timeline. It wouldn't be cheap, and I can't guarantee the outcome. But Elena, what your brother is doing, it's not just unethical. It might be actionable. I thought about my parents' phone call. About Mom's sudden interest in adjusting estate plans. About Marcus agreeing we should all be in communication. They wanted back in now that I had something worth being part of. But they'd never acknowledged the systematic campaign Marcus had waged against me. They probably didn't even know about it. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't care. Do it, I told James. Document everything. I want to know exactly what he did. Over the next 6 weeks, James worked methodically through business filings, email chains obtained through discovery in other cases, professional network interactions. He built a timeline that was both impressive and devastating. Marcus had contacted or warned away an estimated 37 potential business connections over 2 years. He'd posted negative implications about me on 6 different professional forums. He'd used his position on the Small Business Development Council to steer people away from my services. Every time I'd struggled to land a client, every mysterious cancellation, every opportunity that evaporated without explanation, Marcus's fingerprints were somewhere in the background. James laid it all out in a detailed report, 43 pages of documented interference. "This is enough," he said, sliding the report across the table. "More than enough for a cease and desist, potentially enough for a lawsuit if you want to go that route." I looked at the report for a long time. "I'm going to pause here because I need your honest opinion. If you had proof your sibling had been sabotaging you for years, would you sue them or just cut them off permanently?" A for sue, B for cut off. Tell me what you'd do. And subscribe if you want to see what Elena decides. Because her choice surprises everyone, including herself. What I did next wasn't about revenge. It was about something else entirely. I kept James's report in my office safe for 2 weeks before deciding what to do with it. Part of me wanted to send it to my parents. To show them exactly who their golden child really was. To prove that their precious Marcus had spent 2 years trying to destroy the daughter they'd already thrown away. But that would require caring what they thought. And I was surprised to discover I didn't. Not anymore. The anger I'd carried for so long had gradually been replaced by something quieter, not forgiveness exactly, but a kind of indifference that felt healthier than rage. Catherine noticed my distraction during our Monday morning strategy meeting. "You're somewhere else," she said, setting down her coffee. "What's going on?" I told her about James's report, about the extent of Marcus's interference, about the decision I was trying to make. She listened in that complete, focused way she had, like she was assembling furniture in her mind and needed to understand how all the pieces fit together. "What do you want to happen?" she asked finally. "I want him to stop." "Do you want him punished?" I thought about that. Did I want Marcus to suffer the way I'd suffered? Did I want him to know what it felt like to be systematically undermined by someone who was supposed to love you? "No," I said, surprising myself. "I just want him to leave me alone. Then send a cease and desist. Make it legal and binding. Draw a clear line that says this behavior stops now, or there will be consequences. You don't have to burn down his life. You just have to protect yours." That afternoon, James drafted the letter. It was 6 pages of carefully worded legal language that essentially said, "We know what you've done. We have documentation. If you continue, we will take legal action." He sent it via certified mail to Marcus's home address and his business office. I didn't hear anything for 5 days. Then my phone rang. "Marcus." I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "What the hell is this?" His voice was tight, angry, but underneath I heard something else. Fear. It's exactly what it says. Documentation of your interference in my business over the past 2 years, and notice that it needs to stop. You're threatening to sue your own brother? I'm informing my brother that his behavior has consequences. Elena, I was trying to protect people. You were unstable, moving around, no real foundation. Stop. I cut him off. Don't insult both of us by pretending this was about protection. You were threatened by me. You needed me to fail so you could keep being the successful one. I understand that now. But it's over. Silence on his end. I'm not going to sue you, Marcus. I'm not going to tell Mom and Dad what you did. I'm not going to destroy your reputation the way you tried to destroy mine. But if you contact another client, if you post another warning, if you interfere with my business in any way, that changes. Do you understand? This is insane. I'm your brother. Then act like it. Or leave me alone. Those are your options. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt oddly calm. Lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. Catherine was right. I didn't need revenge. I just needed boundaries. Here's what I want to know from you: have you ever had to choose between getting even and just getting free? Which did you choose? And if you had to do it again, would you make the same choice? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still following this journey, hit that like and subscribe. Because what happened after I drew that line with Marcus? That's when my parents finally showed their true colors. Let me tell you about the letter that arrived 2 weeks later. The letter came from Roger Chen, my parents' attorney. Not a personal note, a formal legal document with raised letterhead and carefully structured paragraphs. The estate distribution was being re-evaluated. My parents wished to include Elena in future planning discussions. They proposed a meeting at Roger's office in Scottsdale to restore family unity and financial equity. I read it twice, looking for the catch. Then I called James. They're trying to rewrite history, he said after reviewing the letter. They want you back in the estate, presumably because you've proven you can build wealth independently. But notice what's not in this letter. What? An apology. Any acknowledgement of what they did. Any mention of Marcus's behavior or the circumstances under which you were removed from the estate in the first place. He was right. The letter was sterile, transactional. It treated the disinheritance like a clerical error to be corrected, not a devastating rejection that had shaped 3 years of my life. What do you want to do? James asked. I thought about the girl who'd signed those papers 3 years ago. Who'd walked out of her childhood home with nothing and rebuilt herself from borrowed confidence and sheer stubbornness. I want to respond, but not through Roger. I'll write to them directly. I spent 3 days crafting the letter. Not because it was long, it was barely a page, but because I needed every word to be exactly right. Dear Mom and Dad. I received Roger's letter about reconsidering the estate distribution. I appreciate the gesture, but I'm declining your offer. 3 years ago, you decided I wasn't worthy of being part of this family's legacy because I chose a creative career over a traditional one. You measured my value in stability and obedience and found me lacking. I've spent 3 years building something without your approval, your money, or your support. What I built is mine, earned through work, not inheritance. I don't need to be added back into an estate plan to prove I have value. I already know what I'm worth, and it has nothing to do with your money. I hope you and Marcus are well. But I won't be attending any meetings about restoring family unity. That unity was broken by your choice, not mine, and restoration would require something you haven't offered: acknowledgement of how you treated me. I wish you well, but I'm building my own legacy now. Elena. I sent it certified mail. No lawyer intermediary, no formal legal language. Just the truth in plain words. Mom called 2 days after the letter arrived. I let it go to voicemail. Elena, this is childish. We're trying to do the right thing and you're being stubborn. Your father is disappointed. Call us back so we can discuss this like adults. Like adults. As if I were the one being unreasonable. Dad called next. His message was shorter, quieter. Elena, I made mistakes. I see that now. Please let us make this right. I almost called him back. Almost. That sentence, I made mistakes, was the closest he'd ever come to an apology in my entire life. But an apology isn't just words. It's changed behavior. It's acknowledgement of harm. It's the absence of conditions. Dad wasn't apologizing for what he'd done. He was apologizing that it hadn't worked out the way he'd planned. There's a difference. I deleted both voicemails. Catherine found me in my office that evening, staring at project renderings without really seeing them. "You okay?" she asked. I told them no. "How does that feel?" I thought about it. Like closing a door I didn't know was still open. "Let me ask you, have you ever had to choose your own peace over family pressure? Did you stick with it, or did you eventually cave?" A for stuck with it, B for caved. Drop your answer below. And if this resonates with you, subscribe. Because Elena's story takes an unexpected turn when someone from her past shows up with information that changes everything. 3 months later, I got a visitor I never expected. Jennifer appeared at my Austin office on a Tuesday afternoon without warning. Marcus's wife. The woman who'd sat at that dining room table 3 years ago, squeezing my brother's hand while I signed away my inheritance. My assistant called back to my office. "There's a Jennifer Martinez here to see you. Says it's personal." I almost said I wasn't available. But curiosity won. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner. More tired. The polished confidence I'd seen at that family dinner was gone, replaced by something nervous and uncertain. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, sitting in the chair I gestured to. "I wasn't sure you would." I wasn't sure I would either. "What are you doing in Austin?" "I drove here. Left this morning." She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I didn't remember her having. "I need to tell you something about Marcus." "About what's been happening?" I waited. "Your parents didn't just cut you out of the estate on their own," she began. "Marcus pushed for it. Hard. 4 months before that dinner. I figured that out." "No, you don't understand. It wasn't just about the money. He was obsessed with making sure you failed. He spent hours online, tracking your business, finding ways to interfere. He'd get angry when you landed new clients. He celebrated when you lost projects." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through screenshots. "I saved these. Texts between Marcus and your mom where he's feeding her reasons why you're not responsible enough to inherit. Emails to business contacts warning them about you. He was systematic about it." I looked at the messages. They were worse than what James had documented. Marcus hadn't just been protecting his inheritance, he'd been waging a campaign to ensure I stayed beneath him. "Why are you showing me this now?" Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm leaving him. The divorce papers were filed yesterday. And I realized I've been complicit in something cruel for 3 years, and I can't carry that anymore." "What changed?" "I found out I was pregnant 6 months ago." She touched her stomach instinctively. "We have a daughter now. She's 3 months old. And I keep thinking about what Marcus did to you, his own sister, just because he felt threatened. What kind of father is that? What kind of man?" She wiped her eyes roughly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I sat there at that dinner and said nothing while your family erased you. But I wanted you to know the whole truth. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say." This woman I'd barely known, who'd been part of one of the worst days of my life, was now sitting in my office dismantling what remained of my brother's character. "Does Marcus know you're here?" "No. He thinks I'm visiting my sister in Houston." "And your daughter?" "With my mother." She smiled slightly. "Her name is Sophie. She's perfect. And she's why I finally had the courage to leave." We talked for another hour. She told me about Marcus's controlling behavior, his obsession with status, his inability to handle any situation where he wasn't the most successful person in the room. Before she left, she said, "Your parents keep asking when we'll bring Sophie to visit." I told them maybe when they're honest about how they treated their other daughter. I don't think that's going to happen. I walked her to the elevator. "Thank you for coming. For telling me the truth. You built something amazing without any of them," she said. "Sophie should know her aunt is someone who didn't give up when the world told her to. Maybe someday you'll let her meet you." Quick question: if someone who wronged you came back years later to apologize, would you accept it? Or is some damage permanent? A for accept, B for permanent. Tell me in the comments. And hit subscribe, because what happens after Jennifer leaves? Elena makes a decision that surprises everyone. Let me tell you about the trust fund. 6 months after Jennifer's visit, Ross and Martinez Design Hospitality hit a milestone: $12 million in completed projects across Texas, with contracts signed for another $8 million in upcoming developments. Catherine and I celebrated at her ranch outside Austin, drinking good whiskey and watching the sunset paint the hills gold. "We should talk about growth strategy," she said. "We've proven the model works. Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, we could expand to other markets. Denver, Nashville, Portland. Or," I said carefully, "we could do something different." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." I'd been thinking about this for weeks, ever since Jennifer's visit. About Sophie, who would grow up in a world that often told women their creative pursuits were hobbies, not careers. About all the designers and artists and creators who'd been told they weren't practical enough, weren't business-minded enough, weren't worth investing in. What if we created a foundation? I proposed. Specifically for creative professionals from difficult family situations. People who have talent but no financial backing. No safety net. Catherine set down her glass. An incubator? More than that. Mentorship, seed funding, business training. Everything I wish I'd had when I was starting over with $2,800 and no clients. That's not a small undertaking. No, it's not. But we have the capital. We have the network. We have the expertise. I paused. And we have the understanding of what it's like to be written off by people who should have believed in you. Catherine smiled slowly. You want to build doors for other people. Exactly. We spent the next 3 months developing the structure. The Elena Martinez Foundation for Creative Entrepreneurs. Initial endowment, $2 million, all from my personal earnings, not family money. The foundation would provide grants, mentorship, and business development resources to creative professionals aged 25 to 35 who demonstrated talent but lacked traditional support systems. Priority given to those from fractured family backgrounds or those who'd been disinherited. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was creating the inheritance I'd been denied, but giving it to strangers instead of keeping it for myself. We launched quietly in January. No press releases, no big announcements. Just applications open on a simple website. I expected maybe 50 applications in the first month. We received 847. Reading through them broke my heart and rebuilt it simultaneously. So many people with extraordinary talent and crushing stories. Parents who'd cut them off for choosing art over medicine. Families who'd called their dreams childish. Siblings who'd undermined them out of jealousy. My story, repeated in hundreds of variations. We selected the first cohort of 12 recipients. Each would receive $25,000 in seed funding, 6 months of intensive mentorship, and introduction to our professional network. At the first gathering, I stood in front of these 12 people, designers, photographers, writers, musicians, and felt something shift inside me. "You're not here because you need saving," I told them. "You're here because you've already saved yourselves. You chose your path even when it was hard. Even when people you loved told you to quit. This funding isn't charity. It's investment in what you've already started building." A young photographer in the back row started crying. Then she raised her hand. "My mother told me last year that I'd never amount to anything with a camera. She said I was wasting my life." Her voice wavered. "Thank you for proving her wrong." "No," I said gently. "You proved her wrong. I'm just opening a door." After the session ended, Catherine pulled me aside. "This is what it was all for, wasn't it? Everything you built. This is why." I looked at the 12 people gathering their materials, exchanging contact information, already forming the kind of supportive community I'd never had. "Yeah," I said. "I think it is. Let me ask you something personal. If you could create one thing to help people going through what you went through, what would it be? Tell me in the comments. Your answer matters. And subscribe if you want to see how this story ends. Because what happens when Elena's family finds out about the foundation? That's next. One final chapter remains. The article in Forbes changed everything. From disinherited to philanthropist, how Elena Martinez built an empire and gave it away. The headline appeared on the Forbes website on a Monday morning, accompanied by a photo of me at the foundation's first cohort graduation. I didn't seek the publicity. A journalist had heard about the foundation through one of our recipients and requested an interview. I almost said no, but Catherine convinced me that visibility would help us reach more applicants. The article was detailed. It covered the disinheritance, the struggle, the Austin Hotel project, the business growth, and the foundation. It included numbers: $12 million portfolio, $2 million foundation endowment, 12 initial recipients with more cohorts planned. By Tuesday morning, my phone had 37 missed calls. Most were from numbers I didn't recognize: journalists, podcasters, speaking invitation coordinators. 3 were from Mom. I listened to her voicemail on Wednesday, sitting in my office with morning coffee, watching Austin wake up through the window. "Elena, we saw the article. We had no idea you'd accomplished so much. We're so proud of you. Please call us. We'd like to talk about the foundation. Perhaps we could contribute. Make this a family legacy project. Call me." I deleted it. Dad's message was shorter. "The Forbes article was remarkable, Elena. You've become someone I don't recognize, and I mean that as the highest compliment. I'm sorry I couldn't see this version of you 3 years ago. I'm sorry for many things." I saved that one. Not because I planned to call back, but because it was the closest my father had ever come to real accountability, and some part of me needed to know I hadn't imagined it. Marcus didn't call. But Jennifer sent a text, saw the article. "Sophie is 2 months old and perfect. I tell her about her aunt who builds doors for people. Someday I hope she can meet you." I replied, "I'd like that." The foundation grew faster than we'd anticipated. The Forbes article brought in donations from strangers, applications from across the country, partnership requests from arts organizations and business schools. By year 2, we'd funded 48 creative entrepreneurs. By year 3, 93. Some failed. Creative ventures often do. But most succeeded in ways that transcended simple profit metrics. They built lives that felt authentic. They created work that mattered to them. They proved that the people who'd written them off were wrong. That was success enough. I never added my parents back into my life. Not fully. We established a cordial distance, holiday cards, brief emails on birthdays. Dad's messages became more reflective over time, more acknowledging of his mistakes. Mom's remained surface level, focused on accomplishments rather than relationships. That was okay. I'd learned that love and reconciliation aren't obligations. They're choices. And I'd chosen myself. 5 years after that family dinner, I stood in the gallery of our newest project, a renovated warehouse in East Austin that served as both foundation headquarters and co-working space for creative professionals. The opening night was crowded with foundation alumni, current cohort members, donors, and supporters. People whose lives had intersected with mine through this project I'd built from anger transformed into purpose. Catherine found me near the back, watching the crowd. "You did it," she said quietly. "You turned the worst thing that happened to you into the best thing you've ever done." I thought about that. About the girl who'd signed away her inheritance with steady hands. About the designer who'd eaten ramen for weeks to survive. About the entrepreneur who'd learned that doors can be built when you can't find them ready-made. "No," I said. "The worst thing that happened was exactly that, the worst thing. But what I built afterward? That's separate. That's mine." The difference mattered. We've reached the end of Elena's story, but I want to hear yours. What's the worst thing someone in your family ever did to you? And more importantly, what did you build from the ashes? Tell me in the comments. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you don't need permission from the people who gave up on you to start building something beautiful. Your legacy isn't what they leave you. It's what you create despite them. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next story.